Hey guys, welcome to systemcontroltech.com. In today's topic, we are going to give an example on how to set up a schedule for a VAV or an air handler. This should take you through all of the basic steps required to get a VAV or an air handler in a schedule and get it set up for the time frame in which you need it. And these schedules can be very effective in helping reduce energy usage. What we're looking at here is one of our VAVs. Now, many of the steps involved with this are virtually identical if you are scheduling an air handler as well. The first thing that we need to understand is that this is our main point of occupying this device. You will see on an air handler as well, you will have either an occupied or unoccupied point or a system on and off. Sometimes you will have both. System availability on and off is a little different than the occupied, unoccupied, but once again it depends on your particular unit. What we're going to do is we are going to build a schedule for this particular VAV. We are currently in Metasys Extended Architecture running version 6.0. However, these steps are identical to a lot of the previous versions, so you should have no problem following along with this. Currently, we are under the All Items tab. We are not using the user view as of yet. That can be added at a later date as far as adding our schedule to the user view, but right now we just want to get our schedule built. Currently, we are underneath the main NAE or NIE, depending on the type of system that you have, for the particular building that we want to schedule a room in. Underneath this building, we have all of the devices that are on our trunk, and of course we have our room as well is under this trunk. So what we're going to do is go down to our schedule folder, which is underneath this NAE. I'm going to highlight my schedule folder, and of course for organization you can actually create folders within folders, just like you can in many Windows applications. But for the purpose of this video, we're simply going to put the schedule for this room underneath the schedule folder. Now, once I have the folder location highlighted, I'm going to go up to my Insert tab. I'm going to click Insert, and I'm going to go down to Insert and Object. That's what a schedule is. It is an actual object. Now, when I click Object, it's going to bring me this pop-up window, and from this I can select multiple things. I can select whether I want an analog value, an accumulator, an auto shutdown, a binary value, of course a calendar, and just a whole list of other objects for the system. Now, the particular one that we want is right here, Schedule. I'm going to highlight that, and of course then it is going to give me the option to proceed to the next step. Once I click Next, I am brought up to another window which basically just asks me for the destination. And as we can see here, I am underneath my building NAE. I have my schedule folder highlighted, which if you wish to change the location, you could do that from this step. But we're going to leave that exactly where it currently is. So I'm going to select Next to proceed to the next step. From this screen, I am given a display of items that are currently within that folder. We can see other things used with our scheduling in this particular building, but it'll be different for each building, so it really depends on what you have in your system. But also from this screen, I am able to name the schedule. I highly recommend that you name the schedule something that associates it with the room. Now, what we're going to do, the room that we are scheduling here is actual room number 101. So I am just going to delete out the default name that it puts in there. And as you can see, you are required to put in some type of a name. Now then, what I'm simply going to do is call this room 101. I'm going to abbreviate it RM space 101. Now that I have my room name entered, I simply go down and I hit next. It is going to bring me into this window. You have a couple of options of setting up your schedule. You can either completely set up the schedule from the configuration window, or you can simply build the schedule and go back and then add everything in. I like actually creating the schedule to where it appears in my folder here, then go back and adding in the items for the schedule as well as the times. The reason for that is there's a lot of work that can go into setting one of these up under the configuration window. In the past and on occasion, I have had the system to blink or hang up or some other type of hiccup in the system that would cause me to lose everything that I've done. So if I had entered my room and entered my time for the room and all of that, I have lost it. I've had to go back and start from scratch, which, you know, there are many times that you can go right through this step, set your schedule completely up and have no problem whatsoever. In fact, the majority of the time you don't. But just my own preference is I will actually create the schedule and then go back in and tie it to the room and enter my time. So from here, from this screen, of course, you know, when we first come into this, we simply come into this screen here. I'm simply going to hit next. Now, this is just a review screen. You know, the object type, JCI schedule, the identifier is what we've named it, which is room 101. And of course the parent, which is basically telling the location. You know, this is just a review screen, so there's nothing really here that we need to worry about. You know, it just gives you an opportunity to review that you have your you know, your name correct and that sort of thing. Now then, we just come down and click finish, and I want you to notice over here underneath this screen here, under the all items screen, you will actually see this schedule appear over here in this folder. Now when I hit finish, now the schedule is finished, and it brings me up to this window here, which, as you can see already, the schedule has appeared down here on the left hand side. I have the option of adding a trend, a totalization, alarm, averaging, which we don't really need to do that for the schedule. This is, you know, an option that you can do if necessary, depending on what you're doing with your system. But we're simply going to hit finish down here, and now we're going to go back and we are going to bring our schedule over into our view window. Currently, this is how a schedule looks when it is brand new. You can see we have the name room 101, and I want to talk just a minute about some of the options that you have in the schedule. This window here, if you so desired, gives you the opportunity to set up an effective time period that this schedule will run. Suppose you are on a college campus and the fall semester class does not change from year to year, that they use the classroom the exact same time each year for the fall semester, but during the spring semester those hours would change. What you could do is you could actually go in here and set up an effective period, basically to run the length of the fall semester or the spring semester, depending on what you're doing. We here at our facility do not really use this. The classes change between the hours change between the classes, how they use the classrooms, and that sort of thing. It is an effective tool, but it is something we do not use. So we're going to basically dive right into adding in our room or air handler, there again depending on what you're using the schedule for, and then entering a time frame. Now, my previous window is the room. We are at room 101, B101. This occupied unoccupied command is what I am going to be linking the schedule to. This is what turns on the box, the VAV, and allows it to control temperature. Or if this was an air handler, this would be the point that I use to turn on my air handler. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie our schedule to this point. Now, when you are in your schedule, the first step that you want to take, whether you are doing it under the view after you have created it or if you're doing it in the configuration window, the very first step that you want to take is to link the schedule to the object or the room or air handler that you are scheduling. So we're going to go here to the left hand side and we're going to simply hit our edit button. Once we hit our edit button, you can see that our screen has changed. You may have the temptation of going ahead and putting in your time here. Do not do it. You can save yourself a step by tying it first of all to the object. Depending on the type of object that you are linking it to, the values that you enter here can change significantly. So if we were going to set this schedule up for an effective period, like if it was going to be a fall semester and then another one for a spring semester or even a summer, we would change that here. But once again, we are not going to be doing that with this schedule. You will notice some of these other windows here, the binary, the release, the off, this type of thing will change actually when you link your schedule to the object that you are scheduling. So let's go ahead and do that. From your drop down window, you are simply going to drop it down and go to schedule items. Your screen is going to change to this. This is going to be the list of items that we will be scheduling. Anything that we add here will be controlled by the schedule. I caution you on the type of items that you add here. The items that you put into this section here need to be identical. You cannot have, for example, an air handler that runs off of an older type of software, like an N2, tied in with the same schedule that you are controlling a backnet device with. Those values can often go opposite. The way a controller sees a value can often be different from one to the other. And the schedule will look at the top item as the key item, and it will set up a lot of these configurations for you. Now, to give an example, one type of a box may see a particular value that this schedule puts in as an occupied. Say if your key item sees this schedule as an occupied and you have a different type of controller added here, underneath that key item, that other controller may see it as an unoccupied or a standby or something similar. So once again, let's start by adding our item and linking the schedule to the room that we are going to be scheduling. So I come right here, I hit my plus sign. Once I hit my plus sign, I am given this pop-up window. And you can see this is basically a network map of everything on my system. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger to make it easier to navigate. I'm going to go down to find my building. Okay, we have here is the main building device, NAE, for the building. I'm going to now locate the room. I'm going to drop down my trunk, which in this case for this room it is under the trunk number 1. Now I'm going to also locate the individual room, which we can see is right here. This is a room, but I simply can't go and highlight that room. That is not correct. That will not function in the schedule. What I need to go into is I need to drop down the room and I need to get the actual occupancy command. In this case, OCC-C. You can see this from your system. Under the all items, you can see it when you pull an item into the view window. It'll display enough of this to give you an idea of exactly which point you need to tie it to. So I drop down this window, I highlight my occupied command. Now that I have that highlighted, I go down here and I hit OK. Once I hit OK, you can see that it has appeared in my window here. That means the schedule will be tied to this particular room. We can see in our window here some of our items have changed. The status text before it simply said on and off, but since I have added in this room to this schedule, it has automatically defaulted it to the values of this particular point. Now that we have that schedule linked, we can actually go in now and add a time. We can also set the default of this schedule to be unoccupied, which is something that I would recommend that you do once you link in a room. That way, if a time is missed when scheduling a room, the default of the schedule, the default state of the schedule, I should say, will be unoccupied. In other words, it will turn the box off. You can do this or not do it. It's completely up to you. Depending on the techniques that you use for scheduling, you should be able to eliminate any steps or any errors in keeping the rooms unoccupied when they're not being used. Now that we have our room linked to this schedule, we're now going to go back to our weekly schedule and we're going to enter in our time frame. Now this goes into a little bit of how to schedule. If we had changed this to unoccupied, I could simply go here, select my days of week, like let's just say Monday through Friday, and say that we come on at 5 o'clock, or we're going to occupy the box at that time, and it would just throw it in there. In theory, and in many of the applications, you will see that the spaces that are not highlighted here, this schedule, if this was checked, would automatically fill it with unoccupied. What I recommend is actually taking a little bit of extra time filling this correctly. And what you're seeing that I'm doing now, I'm going back and deleting out what we had started to add in, because I don't want to do the schedule this way. If you want to delete something, you can simply highlight it, go up to your minus button and hit it, and it will take it out of there for you. What I want to do first of all is I want to set the unoccupied state of this schedule. I'm simply going to hit my plus button. I'm going to select all. Pay attention to this window here, because depending on the type of controller that you have, this will come up differently. Some controllers actually will default to unoccupied, or I've seen them in standby, resume. It really depends on the controller, so pay attention to this window here. First thing that we want to do, our time is 00. What it's going to do is, when I hit the OK button, it is going to unoccupy everything on that room for the entire week. Now, anytime you see one of these little black arrows, that means that the schedule is going to issue out a command for whatever time that is on. Right now, 00 is going to be midnight. So at midnight on each of these days, this schedule is going to issue an unoccupied command. Now, if we were to leave this on, if we had an event running in that room till midnight, when the clock rolls around the next morning, if there's nothing scheduled for the next day, the schedule will take the controller back to unoccupied. Now then, let's set up a time during the day for when our schedule is running. Now I go back here, I hit my plus sign again. We're going to go Monday through Friday. Now we can check either individual days depending on what you're doing, or you can simply go over here, hit the Monday through Friday, and it'll select all Monday through Friday for you. Now we're going to set our time to occupy. We want to run this, we're going to go say 6 o'clock in the morning. We're going to bring this down to 6 a.m. Of course, this is in 24-hour time cycles is how this works. At 6 a.m. I want to occupy this VAV. Now we can see here 6 a.m. occupied. Once I hit my OK button, here we go, and I can hover over this and see at 6 a.m. there's my black arrow. It will issue out a command to the VAV to occupy at 6 a.m. But We also see that we have this going all the way through till midnight, and we don't want it to run all the way through till midnight each day. So I go back, I hit the plus sign again, I'm going to select my Monday through Friday again. I'm going to turn this off at 4 o'clock. So looking at this under a 24-hour time frame, it's going to be 1600. I already have my unoccupied checked. Now I'm going to go back and hit OK, and as we can see, from 6 a.m. until 4 o'clock, that room should be unoccupied. That is the basics of setting up a weekly schedule. If I was to save this, which I'll do right now, I'm going to go back to the room, and in a moment you just seen it. You just seen the room go occupied. That schedule is now controlling this room. The room is occupied, the VAV will turn on, allow airflow into the room, and it should regulate temperature. Now then, let's take a minute, go back to our schedule, and suppose that I needed to run this schedule at a different time for a particular day. Or suppose there was nothing going on in this area for a particular day and I wanted to shut it down. How can I do that? Very simple. I go into my edit mode, and that is where exception schedules come in. I drop down my window again, my display mode, and I go down to exception schedules. Inside exception schedules, I have a window here where I can select a list of dates, a date range, and then I have a time window here. I hit my plus sign here, and once again I can select a date from this, whatever date that is. Of course, it will default always to the day, today's date. I can go a date range to where I can set it up. Say if I was going to run this for an entire week at different hours, I can set it up for November. I can even go just an unbelievable amount of time. I can also go day of the week. If I wanted it just every Wednesday, I wanted it to run a different set of hours. If I didn't want to do it on a weekly calendar, I can set it as the second Wednesday of the month. The second Wednesday of each month. There's a lot you can do with exception schedules. But suppose I just wanted to turn the room off. That's what we'll do, something simple. I'm just going to select date. I'm going to leave today's date highlighted because that's what I want it to do. I don't need to worry about the day of the week because the only thing that I need is the month, the day, and the year, which is today. Once I hit OK, that time is going to appear in this window. Now then, once I have that in the window and it's highlighted, I can simply go down here and just suppose I wanted to unoccupy a room for today. I'm just going to leave this unoccupied, but once again you will need to pay attention to whatever comes up here because of the difference in your controllers. And I'm simply going to hit OK. I can do the same for tomorrow, or I can do the same for just a range of dates. Say on the 11th, if I wanted to run it from, I don't know, 10 to 2 or something, I would go in, I would unoccupy it for the morning, and I would bring it up at well, we'll go down here and just say 10, switch this to occupied, and go back in here and simply go down to we'll go to 3. Okay, on this particular date, this schedule would run that room from 10 until 3 for this particular date. Whichever one of these that you have highlighted is the one that you're going to show the time for down here. So if I needed to edit one of these, I can simply go highlight it, and add whatever time in or change it however I needed to. To delete one out, I simply go up here and hit the delete button, or to add another one, I just hit the plus button. Now suppose I wanted to modify the time. Very easy. I can simply go down here, and you see how my mouse changes, that time appears. I can simply hover over that, click my left mouse button, hold it down, and then just drag it, and you can see how the time changes. And whatever I change that to is what the room will run. Now then, our room is our schedule is set up. We have 2 exception schedules in there, and this is the basic steps of setting up a schedule for a particular room. Now then, one thing you need to remember about exception schedules exception schedules always override the weekly. Even though our weekly schedule has the room occupied for today, we have an exception schedule in there for today of unoccupied. An exception schedule will override anything that you have in the weekly schedule. So if you're having to set up an exception for a particular room, say if a room is going to be running longer hours, you need to include in the schedule the normal hours of that particular room as well as the extended hours. If you do not, when the people come into the room when they normally do, your room may be off. That's why you need to make sure that you include the time of the normal hours in with your exception schedule that you set up. Now then, for a test and to show you just how the exception will override it, you can see here for today I have an exception set up to unoccupy the box. The weekly shows that it should be occupied. When I hit this save button, I'm going to immediately go back to that VAV. When I hit the save, here we go. Now in a moment you will see this switch to unoccupied. It may take it just a moment, but it will switch. And there we go. As you can see, the room is back unoccupied. Even though the weekly schedule has it on today, our exception schedule has overrode the weekly schedule and turned it back off. I hope this helps. For more information, visit my blog at systemcontroltech.com. And thanks for your time. Drop me a message if you have any questions, and I will try to answer those questions there either on my blog or on the YouTube video. But once again, systemcontroltech.com, and thanks for your time.